Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the weekly seminar series at the Dahdaleh Institute for Global Health Research. My name is Mary Viktorovich, and I'm the interim director of the Institute. Today, we're delighted to host Professor Tania Das Gupta, who will lead today's seminar entitled Mobile Dreams, Punjabi International Students in the Greater Toronto Area. As is our usual practice, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous land that we're on. As this is a hybrid event, some guests are on different territories, so please take the time to give thanks and respect to the land on which you're currently living and working. As many of us are in Toronto, I'd like to recognize that York University is situated on the traditional territorial area known as Tkaronto, with its current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We acknowledge this as the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations, including the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat, and the Métis. This territory is subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. So let's begin with a brief introduction to our speaker. So Professor Tania Das Gupta is a full professor in the School of Gender, Sexuality, and Women's Studies at York. Her teaching and research interests focus on South Asian diasporas, transnationalism, race, racism, anti-racism, migration, state policies, women in work, community activism, and racism in the labor movement. In 2021, she published Twice Migrated, Twice Displaced, Indian and Pakistani Transnational Households in India by UBC Press, and some of her earlier books address racism in nursing, racism and paid work, race and racialization, essential readings. So in today's seminar, Tania will talk about her research focusing on Indian Punjabi international students. Through her documentary, she'll share the compelling narratives of these students residing in the Greater Toronto Area. The documentary will showcase the settlement process during the COVID-19 pandemic and the students' journey as they establish relationships with permanent residents in their new home and begin their search for housing and employment. So as this is a 2-hour event that will end at 2 p.m., we'll start with a few remarks from Tania, followed by the 50-minute documentary screening. We'll then take a short 10-minute break and then hold a question and discussion session. So we'll try and wrap up and conclude the seminar around 1:55 p.m. And just some general reminders that this seminar will be recorded, and please mute your microphones unless you're presenting or asking a question. And also, please use the raise hand button or chat function if you do wish to ask a question. So now I'd like to ask Tania to discuss her research. So over to you, Tania.
Thank you so much, Mary. And thank you, all of you, for coming to the screening this morning. I just want to also thank the Dahdaleh Institute for Global Health Research and Hannah and Teresa for being so helpful and supportive. I also want to thank Professor Yvonne Su, who's been very supportive and full of enthusiasm about the project, which always helps in moving it forward. It is an ongoing project, so it has provided me the opportunity to collaborate with a lot of people, which I've really appreciated. A big thank you to my partner in crime, Pradeepto Roy, better known as Rick Roy. He likes to stay in the background, but he is very much responsible for the creation of this video, and he is a visual artist. He's a photographer and trained in filmmaking. Basically, I think the film itself is self-explanatory. It does give a very brief context at the beginning, so I won't take up too much time in doing that. It was conceptualized within the pandemic situation, and it was about trying to understand how migrant imaginaries may have changed during the pandemic, what kinds of plans, they're making for their mobility, and whether that had changed and how it had changed during the pandemic. But as it turned out, most of the people that we reached happened to be, or happened to have come to Canada as international students. So most of the interview material, which was most interesting, was around the international student experience. So that is the focus of Mobile Dreams. I think it was a relatively quick production, thanks to Rick here. And we were not sure, we created this as a teaching resource, at least that was my thinking behind the creation of this, something that we can use to start discussions around the experiences of international students. It was based on a one-year exploratory study, which was funded by SSHRC under the Partnership Engage grants. And at the time, I thought of it as a sort of a focus on pandemic and the migration experience within the pandemic. But then since then, the whole area of international students has kind of been in the news so much, around the agents, the fraudulent letters of admission, around the recent debates around housing and international students, housing and migration. That whole debate has kind of exploded. And so we found that this very small project has been of great interest to a lot of people. So I think I'll leave my comments there and show the doc and then have some more discussion, hopefully. Thank you again.
About Punjabi international students in the Greater Toronto area. It came out of a one-year exploratory study on COVID-19 and Punjabi migrants, which received funding from the Social Science and Humanities Research Council. You'll find that we have used interviews which were conducted over Zoom because the research was conducted during the COVID-19 pandemic period and when we were under lockdown and social isolation. The videos that we used were the most illustrative ones. We have particularly profiled women international students because I think that their issues are often not talked about. The interviews were conducted in English and Punjabi, and in the video we have provided subtitles so that you can understand fully what they are talking about. They have been organized under some themes for ease of understanding. Hope those are useful for you. You'll find that there is a focus on Brampton and Peel. However, the issues and problems discussed are by no means unique to Brampton and Peel. They can be found across the country. We look forward to your feedback. Why Canada? Why did you and your husband think of Canada and not
because of my studies, hope, nothing. Because my lots of friends were already here. Like they used to tell me like how the process is here, but the pay rate is also good, and the process is also easy as compared to other countries. So that's why I thought we should move here. As we know, in India, there is not good relationship between doctors and nurses. So, another way to gap hunda hai. But over here, the relationship is too good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They treat nurses is also as a doctor?
It was only my choice that I was moving here, and actually we were working over there, and there were things happened in India when we thought about to move to the safest place in the world. You know, there was a robbery happened at our house when it was happened twice. So me and my brother, we were thinking about that little kid we were having at home, that he's not safe at all, and my sister-in-law is not safe at all, because my sister-in-law was working from home for company, and then we were like, it's not the safe place. Also, I faced some issues when I was late from work, and people usually give comments, and they will look at you like they're gonna do something about it. So there are some circumstances when I don't feel safe there, so I move to the safest place. I only know about the cleanliness here, but when I came here, there are some other things as well, that nobody bothers your life here.
Yeah.
But in India, yes, people are gonna say everything to you, and then they notice you in every manner. But here, you can live your life freely.
It was just that I completed my bachelor's, and I was pretty sure that I'm gonna move forward with my further studies, and yeah, it's more of an influence from friends and people here that it's good here. But yeah, I find it was the same thing I found out after coming here. You can be independent, you can earn your own money, you can do things your own, you can have a job, good job, and support your family at the same time. So
yeah, in my generation, even though nowadays also, Canada is a short life, going to Canada, studying there, pursuing your future, especially in Punjab. Everyone has their individual thoughts. Some think that Canada has a better lifestyle. Some people think that it's good to pursue their future there because of economy factor and many other factors. I was just a normal girl studying there. It was a sudden moment that I have to appear for my IELTS exam. Then I got a visa. Then I came here. I cannot say that it was my dream. No, it wasn't. I can say it's my father's. Like his friends' kids were going to abroad to study there.
Sexuality is a nonprofit organization, very community-based, led by 9 young women under the age of 30, which is supporting South Asian daughters of all ages. Before the pandemic, our focus wasn't really on international students. It was mostly for, issues that daughters face at home in Canada, but we noticed that we really were getting a lot of calls and emails around international students and their struggles. And we do that through engagement, outreach, and awareness. So we have a couple of different programs providing them with educational workshops on their legal rights, on information just on immigration in general, because a lot of them don't know anything about, how to get a work permit and who should they contact, should they be paying for certain services, etc. Also, a lot of health-related information and workshops around sexual health, mental health. We've been dealing with a lot of pregnancies that have come, the international students are facing without knowing how to deal with that. And it's unfortunate that the system is so flawed, and we keep, inviting these students in, but we don't have any infrastructure to support them.
my dream was always to become a nurse over here. Like I did my nursing back home. So like my friends ਮੇਰੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਸੀਗੇ, तो ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਸੁਣ ਕੇ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਜਲਦੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਵਾਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਨਰਸਿੰਗ ਸਟੱਡੀ ਕੰਟੀਨਿਊ ਕਰਾਂ। ਉੱਥੋਂ ਇਟਲੀ ਤੋਂ ਸਟੱਡੀ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਣਾ ਪਿਆ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇੱਥੇ, ਬਟ ਇੱਥੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਐਕਸਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਐਂਟਰੀ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਸੀ ਸਿੱਧਾ PR ਬੇਸਿਸ ਤੇ। Over here, also I'm going to give exam for the registered practitioner nurse, RPN. As I've told, like my college was not good, so because of that they told me to give RPN first.
But so which college are you in?
So
So why did you go there? Like what you were saying, your agent told you to go.
Yeah. And nobody guided me like to go for college like in Seneca College. That is good. They provide the practical hours and these kind of things are helpful for us. ਇੰਡੀਆ ਤੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਨਾ ਏਜੰਟਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਗਾਈਡ ਕਰਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਾਲਜ ਦੱਸਦਾ ਉਹੀ ਲੈ ਲਓ ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਗਾਈਡ ਕਰਦੇ ਕਿ ਫਿਰ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮਸ ਆਈਆਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਉਦੋਂ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਏਜੰਟਸ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਸਾਡਾ ਗੈਪ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੈਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ क्योंकि मेरी ग्रेजुएशन कंप्लीट हुई थी मैं एमएससी की एडमिशन ली थी और आइल्स की क्लासेस वगैरह लाने के चक्कर ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਕਾਲਜ 'ਚ ਮਤਲਬ ਬਾਅਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਂ ਥੋੜਾ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਜਾਣਾ ਕਾਲਜ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੈਂ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਸੀ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਦਾ ਬਟ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਦੀ ਐਪਲੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਵੇਟ ਕਰਨੀ ਪੈਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਲਾਈਕ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਐਪਲੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਕੈਨ ਟੇਕ ਅਪ ਟੂ ਲਾਈਕ 6 to 7 months ਔਰ ਉਦੋਂ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਉਦੋਂ ਨੋਸ਼ਨ ਚੱਲਦਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਕੁਝ ਵੀ ਚੇਂਜ ਕਰਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ क्योंकि मेरे ब्रदर का भी थी शेरिडन कॉलेज थी उन्हें कॉलेज चेंज करा लिया तो फिर सानू ये इंप्रैशन नहीं कि एक बार तुम चल जाओ तुम बाद कॉलेज चेंज कर सकते हो प्रॉपर नॉलेज की कमी होने करके अदर थिंग कि इन्होंने टाई अप होंगे ने कॉलेजेस के नाल सो क्योंकि उत्थे बैक होम इंडिया में भी एक एजेंट को नहीं गए असं काफ़ी एजेंट को जाके लाइक ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਕੰਸਲਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਸੋ ਐਵਰੀ ਏਜੰਟ ਦਾ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਊਗਾ ਔਰ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਕਹੂਗਾ ਕਿ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਮਤਲਬ ਹਰ ਵੱਖਰਾ ਵੱਖਰਾ ਕਾਲਜ ਦੱਸੂਗਾ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਕਾਲਜਿਸ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਟਾਈ ਅਪ ਆ ਦੈਟਸ ਇਟ those people they just want to make money they don't know anything about the courses and stuff they just have I think affiliation or maybe connection with a few colleges and university and whoever agent you go to they're gonna just encourage you to go to those particular colleges and stuff. Not the other ones they don't have connection with. I feel like that. If I had proper guidance, I would have gone for a university education at that time. I was a good student. I am a good student. I was just told that whatever you study, you're just gonna get a basic job and in restaurants and stuff. I was not really told that if you study, you're going to get a good job.
Honestly, Tanya, I don't have an idea. Like in Punjab, we just go to agents. They will just guide you. This college is good for you. This city, and we will say yes. So no one guided me. No one told me that this is good. But by luck, it was a good college.
Okay.
But I will not say that someone guided me that that's a good college.
I paid them a lot. Like the whole process was in 15 to 18 lakhs, including the college fees, including the agent fees. Like they never tell us how much they are going to keep it from that money.
It depends on person to person, but yes, sometimes they just tell you that we will need like in Indian currency, they take you. Sometimes they take you money in lakhs. Yes, there are still some people who will tell you that yes, I can provide you a tourist visa in Canada, who are not meeting any requirements they need to meet for a tourist visa, and they are taking like 25 lakhs, 30 lakhs.
Wow.
And yes, there are many people, like when you go into this thing very deeply, yes, people are doing these things to the people who want to come to Canada. Or yes, people are paying as well. For student visa, they don't charge much. Yeah, it depends, like 25,000, 20,000, yes.
Rupees?
But yeah, and but yeah, if there is a complicated case, we can say that if they are not eligible to apply, they are paying more. So that is in lakhs only.
I came to Brampton in September. ਮੇਰੀਆਂ ਕਲਾਸਿਸ ਸਟਾਰਟ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਉੱਥੇ 6 ਜਣੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਮਤਲਬ 3 bedroom ਹਾਊਸ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹ ਫਿਰ ਇੱਕ ਰੂਮ 'ਚ 2 ਜਣੇ ਕਿਚਨ ਐਂਡ ਲਿਵਿੰਗ ਏਰੀਆ ਸ਼ੇਅਰਿੰਗ ਸੀਗਾ a room separate.
So you were in the basement?
No, upper level, Kartika. Oh. Not in the basement. Basement was already rented.
And how much was it charging you for the rent?
I think around 400
per person?
including utilities. Yeah.
Room ਲੱਭਣ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਰਹੀ room ਅਸੀਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕੋਈ ਇੰਨਾ ਆਈਡੀਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਲੱਭੀਦਾ ਸੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਕਾਰਬਰੋ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਹੈ ਉੱਥੇ ਗਏ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਸੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਐਡਸ ਵਗੈਰਾ ਹੁੰਦੇ but there was no luck then ਅਸੀਂ ਤਰੀਜੀ ਦੇ find ਕੀਤਾ
From airport, my family friends picked me up, and then I stayed with them for 2 days, and then they left me at my place where I need to. It was an apartment. I was living with other 4 girls, but it was a very I can say the pleasant environment there to live with them. But the only thing I have faced in that was the bugs. The bed bugs, and that was the horrible experience for me. But I think that was the reason me and my husband met.
I did had enough money because we do have we're support for like 1 year. Like we get monthly installments for our living expenses. But yeah, the place was not that great, but it was not that bad. Also, I had to pretty much stay in college for the whole day. There were so much long classes and stuff. This course was pretty hectic. So yeah, it was not that bad. So, yeah, no, it was a house. There were owners living upstairs. We were in the basement. There were 2 girls living there in 2 bedrooms, and we were also in the other bedroom.
What had happened was she was a student in Sudbury, in Lindsay, and she had she could, with classes going online, she was told by her family and friends that she should just move to Brampton. It would be easier for her. She'd have a community. So she ended up coming here, and somebody had told her that she could live in their home for $500 a month. But she didn't know that meant living in a garage with a heater. It was a garage that had been transformed to house students as well in Brampton. This young lady was sharing a washroom in the basement with other students and the kitchen as well. So it wasn't an ideal living setting. The house was keeping students more than the capacity of the house, which is very common. We've seen. Yeah.
Do you have any idea how many students were living?
Not of that house, but I can tell you in another house that we found, which was advertised as like a quarantine hotel, or on the main floor, you could see around 15 students were being housed there.
Hardly a quarantine kind of situation.
It was literally a living room with mattresses on the floor. And I spoke to someone in the police force as well. Like, if we go and make a complaint against this quarantine hotel that's existing, what happens to the students? And the answer is we're not able to help 15 students with housing. Then, so it's better that they at least are located somewhere safe with a roof on their head. It may not be safe in terms of COVID, but at least they're safe and indoors somewhere, because then they won't have anywhere else to go. So we also run the risk of making them homeless in the matter of minutes by complaining.
A food company. So I was working in GL earlier when I started.
What's that? GL?
General labor. When I was on my student visa,
Yeah.
then I was allowed only work to 20 hours.
Yeah.
Now I'm on my work permit, so I can work more than 40 or 40. Then I moved to Linear. Yeah, it's a factory.
And what do you make?
You know the spanakopita? The
Yeah.
cheese and spinach?
Yeah.
Yeah.
ਤੇ ਰਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਫਸਟ ਜੌਬ ਦੀ ਸੋ ਉਹ ਮੇਰੇ ਚਲੋ ਉੱਪਰ ਦੀ ਜਾਣਕਾਰ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹ ਬੰਦਾ ਗੈਸ ਸਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਸੋ ਕੋਈ ਥਾਂ ਕਿ ਉਹਦੀ ਸਟੱਡੀ ਕੰਪਲੀਟ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਸੀ ਸੋ ਉਹਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਲੇਸ ਕਰਵਾਤਾ ਸੋ ਜੌਬ ਫਾਈਂਡਿੰਗ ਵਾਸ ਪ੍ਰੀਟੀ
ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਆਈ ਹਾਂ ਅਗਸਤ ਵਿੱਚ I think in the around 25th or 26th August ਮੇਰੀ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਸੀ because of my friend, because she was already working there. and she put preference for me. That's why. And उस time मतलब पूरी क्लास ਵਿੱਚ मैं ही थी ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ जॉब मिल गई बाकी सारे मतलब एजेंसीज ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਣਾ ਰੈਜ਼ਿਊਮੇ ਡ੍ਰੌਪ ਕਰਨੇ मतलब सिर्फ मैं ही थी ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ जॉब मिल गई थी ਉਹ ਵੀ just because of preference. Some of them like 7 to 8 months तक एजेंसी ਦੇ थ्रू ही काम करना ਪਿਆ परमानेंट जॉब ही नहीं थी. जॉब तो ਲੱਭਣਾ बहुत hard ਹੁੰਦਾ है. In McDonald's also my friend put my reference and after that ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੁਝ friends ਦੀ reference ਪਾਈ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ preference ਦਿੱਤੀ ਗਈ.
ਬਾਕੀ ਦਾ ਹੀ ਥੋੜਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਸਕੋਪ ਸਰ ਤੇ ਅਗਰ ਡਰਾइविंग करनी थी तो यूनिवर्सिटी कॉलेज पे कोई क्लास में करना चाहिए. पर्सनली मुझे तो गया ड्राइविंग का. और दूसरी बात कि थोड़ा पैसा है उसके बाद कोई ऐसा कस्टमर सर्विस वाला सीन नहीं होता जैसे मराठी मोटर में होता है सिक्योरिटी में होता है अपने मालिक आप होते हो ड्राइविंग करते हो मर्जी से रुकते हो.
I was in a restaurant in Niagara Falls. They paid actually really well because we used to have tips and all and you know मैं काफी पैसे इकट्ठे करे सी उठो. But I stored, I saved that money for my fee. But when I moved to Scarborough in September, from September till December, I guess December or January, I was unemployed. I didn't find a single job there. Like I searched a lot. Like I used to take one route bus, like 101, 104 bus, and I used to get off at every stop and drop my resume. We used to do this thing like once or twice a week. You know, at bus stop you see these ads. So I called that job and went for a job interview, and it was not a very good experience. The job was, I don't know what was the job, and he was some shady work or something. It was massage spa or something. So I literally ran from there and I called my friend and I cried. It says a receptionist job or something, but I went there. It was a massage spa, and the way he explained me and showed me and told me you have to do this and you have to do that, mail client, go. And then after 15 minutes, when he took me to different rooms and showed me these are the policies and double meaning ਗੱਲਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ I thought कि कुछ सही नहीं लग रहा मैनू. And then I just told him okay, I will call you, I will tell you why I will call you. So मैं उठो I literally ran from there. मैनू बिल्कुल जॉब नहीं मिली. फिर मैनू बहुत ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम आई क्योंकि GIC $600 मिलते सी after at the end of the month. और फिर finally he encouraged me to, my friend encouraged me to apply for a security license. So I went for the test, I passed. Then security training की थी वो भी pass हो गई. फिर मैनू December I think end ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ I don't remember exactly, but December end ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ फिर मैं security job ਲਈ interview देने start ਕੀਤੇ and फिर मैनू job मिल गई. January फरवरी में security job start की.
If you go on the Government of Canada's website and you see the number of employers that are banned from offering work permits, it's a lot of Indian people. A lot of Indian people who own trucking businesses, who own restaurants, that they may have done scams, and it's really interesting to look into. We had, for example, our team go out to local businesses in the L6Y area last month to educate them around Sheridan College, for example. We're supporting a vaccine clinic there to get out, get your staff out there and get them vaccinated. But one of the business owners was very annoyed with us that we were in his shop because it's almost as if he didn't want us to tell his staff about vaccine. And we then our staff called us and said we don't feel safe. I said, like your job is to just drop off the information, and if whatever they choose to do with it is up to them. But then our staff ended up leaving. But they really wish that they got a chance to talk to those students who looked like they were interested, but the landlord kind of spoke for them. And I think for the landlord, it may have been more around if these guys talk to my staff, they might find out that I'm paying them under the table or something or whatever that may be. But I think we see that controlling happening in workplaces, we see that controlling happening in households, and that is something that we will keep seeing, especially with the international student population.
मतलब ਜਦੋਂ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਸਟਾਰਟ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਉੱਥੇ ਕੰਮ ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ most of the important thing was my drop off was about to start from May like 4 months ਦੀ break start ਹੋਣ ਵਾਲੀ ਸੀ and ਉਹ ਸੀ ਆਪਾਂ 4 months ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਫੀਸ collect ਕੀਤੀ ਆਪਣੀ full time job ਕਰ ਲੈਂਦੀ ਆ ਫਿਰ ਉਦੋਂ suddenly ਮਤਲਬ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਮਤਲਬ jobs ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਹੀ down ਹੋ ਗਈਆਂ but suddenly ਮੈਨੂੰ like around 3rd or 4th April ਮੈਨੂੰ email ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ we are hiring for the personal support worker ਇੱਕ personal support worker ਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਇੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਲਾਇਸੈਂਸ ਆ ਸਟੱਡੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ for I think almost 1 year ਦੀ ਸਟੱਡੀ ਹੈ and ਸਾਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਕੁਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀਗਾ but circumstances ਏਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ without study on the basis of back home experience and BSc nursing study ਉਸ ਦੇ basis ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ hire ਕੀਤਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਪਰ ਮੈਂ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਸਿਰਫ ਇੱਕ ਹਸਬੈਂਡ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਆਪਣੇ and ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੂੰ ਕਰ ਲਾ join pay was like jumped from 14 to 21 ਇਸ ਤੇ job ਕਰਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਫੀਸ ਵੀ ਕੱਢ ਪਾਈ and ਫਿਰ ਦੇਖ ਲਓ ਮੇਰਾ 1 ਸਾਲ ਦਾ experience ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਮੇਰੀ PR ਫਾਈਲ ਵੀ ਲੱਗ ਗਈ ਇਸ job ਤੇ
All the grocery stores, everything was empty. So they were so rushed and panic at that time. Yeah, so one of my house member, like he was working as a security guard in club and was also working at Tim Hortons. So I don't know from where he got COVID. So we remember, yeah, so on March 18th, he had a fever. He went for testing at the Carbo Journal and after 2 days, he got his report and it said it's positive. And we were even not able to find a thermometer to take body temperature. So we all panicked. We also went over there and they said, okay, you already have constipation. We are not going to test you. You have to self-isolate yourself. So we were isolated for 14 days. And then we told that nurse, hey, we don't have any kind of thermometer to measure that body temperature. In that evening, around 8, she dropped 2 thermometers in our mailbox. And she called us and it was okay. And those 14 days like were pretty fearful or like we don't know like what's gonna happen and like how it's gonna impact us. And even though like we were breathing fine, we were like, hey, like I think something's happening in our chest and like all those things. So yeah, but after 14 days everything was fine and then we were pretty cautious. Like I didn't left my house like for like 4 or 5 months. Yeah, we used Instacart to order our groceries and I gained a lot of weight at that time. And yeah, so after that we ordered some gym stuff, treadmill, bicycle and dumbbells. Well, my family doctor, he told me that you need to stretch and weight exercise. So, and after 4 or 5 months, my friend who lives in Niagara, like who was he came to visit us. And then he called us after a couple of days, like, hey, I have COVID. And like, oh my God. And he was sitting with us in my room. I said, okay, it has struck me twice. Then again, I was isolated for 14 days.
I was already there in 2009. I was on my placement. I was completing my placement with PCHS. Due to pandemic, I have to stop my placement. I have to complete it online. On vacation, the degree completion certificate will be just a certificate. That was all online. It was my big dream to attend that. I was working as a frontline worker. Yeah, I don't have that chance to sit at home and earn. I have to go for work. Like it was a bit scary that I could be getting COVID by going outside with people. I got vaccinated very early.
Luckily, when the COVID hit, they gave us a work from home. Agar na company work from home then it will be going to be very difficult. Pure COVID personally me, I was just sitting at home. I didn't take a bus in 2 years. Grocery I used to walk, and if I need to go like far, then obviously car. But I didn't use the bus in 2 years, 2.5 years. So isolation बहुत अफेक्ट करती है क्योंकि 2019 ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ 2020 ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਪੂਰਾ ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਦਾ ਸਾਲ ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਔਖਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਜੌਬ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਅੱਛੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਅੱਛੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਜੌਬ ਵੀ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਨਾਟ ਹੈਪੀ ਆਈ ਵਾਸ ਨਾਟ ਹੈਪੀ ਇਨ ਜੌਬ ਮਾਈ ਜੌਬ ਸੋ ਘਰ ਬੈਠਣਾ ਸਾਰਾ ਦਿਨ ਇੱਕ ਬੇਸਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੰਦ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਤਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਡਿਪਰੈਸ਼ਨ ਸੀ ਐਂਡ ਬਸ ਖੁਦ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਹੀ ਠੀਕ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਕਰ ਲੈਣਾ ਸਟ੍ਰੈਸ ਹੋਣਾ ਕੁਛ ਨਾ ਕੁਛ ਰੂ ਕੇ ਕਰ ਲੈਣਾ ਠੀਕ ਬਾਹਰ ਅੰਦਰ ਜਾ ਕੇ
The IRCC is unwilling to give us the go-ahead to help international students. We have met with the local MPs, the federal MPs. We have sent in a memorandum to the Minister of Immigration that they should not restrict us for international students, and they haven't made a decision, and I don't think they're going to make a decision.
My brother came in here in COVID time, like last year. It was crazy. He was in the airport for like 2 hours, a long wait time. He had to do quarantine. He was supposed to come here in May last year, what was it, 2020. And then the COVID hit in March, and his flight was actually in April, so everything shut down in March. He had to do 1 semester back home with all the uncertainties, what's going to happen next, because at that time nobody knew what's going to happen next. Did quarantine right there in a hotel near the airport for 14 days.
A lot of young international students were talking about just experiences of studying from home. When home is not, here's your bedroom, here's your desk, it's a shared space with a lot of other students, right? I think academically, a lot of them have struggled and will continue to struggle because they don't have adequate space at home in their basement that they're sharing with 5 other people to get their work done. And another issue that was brought up was just around access to utilities, such as, even something as simple as internet. They're telling their landlords that we need higher speed internet because there's more of us using it now and working from home or studying from home. But the landlord is not listening to that request. And I think it's unfortunate, but they're not able to go access the library and work from there. They're not able to go access the coffee shop and work from there. I think a challenge is that schools are not open, right? So they're not able to build. In an ideal world, they'd be able to go in to their college or their university, and they'd be able to build a network. They'd be able to access social services or whatever, student services or whatever they would need to build a supportive network around them. And this is, someone who's born and brought up in Canada, has a Canadian citizenship, doesn't understand why an international student feels so strongly about coming into Canada, one way or the other, whether they have to pay money to quarantine in a federal facility for 3 days, and not know what's going to happen after those 3 days, because we've seen a lot of students who are just like stranded. They don't know where to go after those 3 days are over.
We used to have calls coming in where there were minor disagreements. We used to kind of work these things out. Now it has gotten to the next level. So the calls that are coming in are actually of kind of violence against women. So actually physical assaults, throwing them out of the house kind of a thing. So it's serious in nature. We have seen a rise in mental health issues amongst new immigrants. And we have seen increased number of deaths of South Asian men in Peel region related to opiate drug use. What I hear that there are a lot of international driving trucks, and trucking industry, unfortunately, in Mississauga and Brampton is severely penetrated by drug kind of issues. So violence against women, international students, mental health, and opiate has skyrocketed during COVID.
Yeah, I know there is some community agencies and stuff. We used to have the posters all around the college, but yeah, I never thought about it. Gurdwara, it was a big role for the first until COVID hit. But I used to go there. I used to just sit there in the bar side for like 2 hours listening to Keaton. It will just calm down my mind. I used to go in Dangar and do seva for like hours and hours. I have heard about these things. That's why I don't live in Brampton. I was alone there. I think in Brampton they have the lines for women and men. I think different. I finished my younger, and I didn't know where to put the plate. And I'm I'm standing there in front of Babaji. There was nobody in front of me who I can copy and put the plate over there. I was asking him what to do, and he mumbled something in his mouth, and I asked him, "Hey, Babaji, where do I put the plate?" He was like, "Tenu sonda nahi laga?" The rude words in a Gurdwara. And he said something else also, but I don't remember that now. I'm a forgetful person. But I remember this because these are the things I don't forget. Age is not the people who are here from long time, they are not so happy. ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਦੇ ਸਿਟੀਜ਼ਨ ਹੋ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਆ ਹੁਣ ਕਾਫੀ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਆਏ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਨਵੀਂ ਯੂਥ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਆ ਫਰੋਮ ਇੰਡੀਆ they are like getting all the jobs and their kids are not going to have the job. Like India ਤੋਂ mostly ਆਪਣੇ students ਆ ਰਹੇ ਆ highly educated ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ so ਉਹ ਇੱਥੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਹਾਰਡ ਵਰਕ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਆ ਬਟ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਦੇ ਬੋਰਨ ਆ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਉਹ ਇੰਨਾ ਹਾਰਡ ਵਰਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਲਾਈਕ ਮੈਂ ਕੰਮ ਤੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਈ ਲੇਡੀਜ਼ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਦੇ ਸੈਟਲ ਨੇ ਪੂਰੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਉਹ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਦੇ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਜੌਬ ਲੈ ਰਹੇ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਉੱਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਆ
Yeah, it's good. Or it's very near to my home. Like I already weekends or sometimes if there's a time in evening, I usually go there. The one is near to my home. They're good, but I heard that the Gurdwara they treat horrible to students. That like they make them feel that you are a student here. We came here 25 years ago. You just came now. You guys just too many students are coming nowadays. I can say that every international students are working hard because they have to pay their people, they have to pay their house bills, phone bills, and the one who are born here, I can say they don't want to work because of their parents. Then that moment they will feel like you guys are working, you guys are sneezing our kids' jobs, but they don't say that they don't want to work. When you go to Gurdwara, they look at you like you are from a different planet or you are some kind of alien. And yes, they have some kind of, the mindset because some of the students have done those things in the past and they are doing right now as well. Even my thinking is getting changed because now we can feel like why the community who is already settled here, why they don't like those people because they don't I can say we don't keep the place clean. Yeah, so there is kind of gap. We can say the communication gap because they don't prefer to listen. The international students, yes, they don't prefer to listen. They just do their own things in their way and then the community living here, they do their things in those. But there is a communication gap, yes. One time I heard somebody saying कि student आ जाते थे and ये साड़ियाँ jobs ले रहे हैं. They are basically I'm not saying everybody, but most of the people there who talk like this or who behave like this, they are basically jealous from us. Yeah, they are like the communication करना टांग क्योंकि पहला ये नहीं पूछते कि तुसी कौन वो पहला जो student आए थे अच्छा तो student आई थी so they don't know कि maybe मैं ना तो ज़्यादा educated है मेरे को ज़्यादा qualification है maybe I'm doing a very good job maybe they are working in a warehouse and I'm working in a big company I have a office they don't see they are okay to student आई थी और तो student आई थी PR हो गया so it's okay मेरी PR
the Western kind of countries have now come up with is that why should we spend on the education of young people and why can't we simply ask them to come here in our institutions, pay us triple the amount of the regular fees, get education and then we will give them the immigration to Canada. So it hasn't cost us anything. It is going to polarize not only just how people are viewing these students or these young people coming into Canada, because it's also polarizing our own communities as well. That why are these people coming in? They are taking the opportunities from the local students to be in the university.
The kind of things that have come forward would include a lot of there's a lot of evictions happening, especially within that international student population that that I'm talking about. We've actually been very successful at creating these relationships with these women, in our community, because we have the age connection, we have the culture connection. They call us Didi. I think it's so beautiful to know that they feel welcomed by somebody in the community, because I think a lot of people have rejected them and a lot of people have othered them. One of the reasons that there is a lack of them coming out to workshops, for example, is they look at us and they say, what, like, you already look down on us. What are you going to tell us? You feel like we need help. One reason for hesitancy might be that we ourselves have created this binary of like us versus them, right? And I think they don't see us as allies. I think they see us as, oh, these are kids who are born here or people who are from here. They think they're better than us. And I think that dynamic exists, unfortunately, and it causes, there's a lack of rapport that we're able to build because of that narrative, right?
ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਬੇਸਮੈਂਟ 'ਚ ਰਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਜੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਕੋਈ ਡੈਮੇਜ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਰਿਸਪੌਂਸਿਬਿਲਿਟੀ ਆ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਠੀਕ ਕਰਨਾ। ਲਾਈਕ ਇੱਥੇ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੇ ਦਿਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ, ਮਤਲਬ ਸਾਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਦਾ ਸ਼ਾਵਰ ਟੁੱਟ ਗਿਆ। ਜੇ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਕਿ ਵੀ ਸ਼ਾਵਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਟੁੱਟਿਆ, ਅਸੀਂ ਸ਼ਾਵਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਦਾਂਗੇ ਅਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲਗਵਾ ਦਿਓ ਇਹਨੂੰ। ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਮੁੰਡਾ ਸੀ ਆਪਣਾ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਬੁਲਾਇਆ, ਉਹ ਤੋਂ ਸ਼ਾਵਰ ਲਗਵਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਐਂਡ ਵਿਦਿਨ 5 ਮਿੰਟਸ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗੇ, ਉਹਨੇ 5 ਮਿੰਟ 'ਚ ਸ਼ਾਵਰ ਲਾ ਕੇ ਚਲੇ ਗਿਆ ਉਹ। ਅਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮੇਰੀ ਲੈਂਡਲੋਰਡ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਕਿ ਯੂ ਹੈਵ ਟੂ ਪੇ ਹਿਮ $175 ਐਂਡ ਦੈਨ ਸ਼ੀ ਸੈਡ ਕਿ ਸ਼ਾਵਰ ਤਾਂ $58 ਦਾ ਆਇਆ, ਬਾਕੀ ਉਹਦੀ ਲੇਬਰ ਹੈ। ਫਿਰ ਉੱਥੇ ਮੇਰੀ ਆਰਗੂਮੈਂਟਸ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਈਆਂ। ਐਂਡ ਦੈਨ ਸ਼ੀ ਸੈਡ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੰਮ ਆ ਲੇਬਰ ਦੇਣਾ, ਸਾਡਾ ਕੰਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ। ਅਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟਲੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨੰਬਰ ਦਿਓ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ, ਮੈਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ। ਉਹ ਲੜਕਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਲੇਬਰ ਮੰਗੇ। ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਵੀ ਔਨਰ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ, ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਔਨਰ ਤੋਂ ਹੀ ਲੈਣੇ ਆ। ਫਿਰ ਦੈਨ ਫਿਰ ਮੇਰੀ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ 'ਤੇ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਈ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਫਿਰ ਕਹਿ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੇਣੇ ਲੇਬਰ, ਆਈ ਵਿਲ ਪੇ ਫॉर ਦ ਸ਼ਾਵਰ। ਬਟ ਫਿਰ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਕਿ ਓਕੇ ਵੀ ਅੱਜ ਤਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੇ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਵੀ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਡੈਮੇਜ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਯੂ ਵਿਲ ਸੀ।
My professor checked my arm and he told me that you need to go see a doctor. I said, why? It's just the rashes I have. And then he told me that no, these are not the rashes, you got bed bugs, so you are not fine. You need to tell your landlord that you're facing this, and then you need to go see a doctor. When I went to the landlord, he told me that there are no bed bugs. Why it's only you facing this problem? No other girl is facing the same thing. But yes, I saw the bed bug in my book when I was studying at night. There are bugs coming out from the wall, and that was a horrible experience with me. And then I told my landlord to give me my money back so that I can move somewhere else. He was not ready for that, and he was making arguments with me. And then when I went to see the doctor, she told me about the tenant board, that I can complain about it to the tenant board, and then they can help me with that. And then I told my landlord that I'm going through this process, be ready with it, and then I will move from here. And then he told me that he will give me my money, no need to go to tenant board. And then he gave my money, and my husband, my other friend, she helped me to come out from that apartment, and she took me to her home, and then I started living with her. She was also a student, and then we were sharing a room.
It was the first time I actually saw the basement. Basement, it's like a cave. It was like a cave. It was very difficult. Living in a basement is no fun. And that even वो बेसमेंट थी, वो बेसमेंट भी बहुत ज़्यादा ख़राब थी, लाइक नो सनलाइट नथिंग, और in a very bad condition. The washroom was very like all the time dirty. बहुत छोटा washroom थी. Kitchen बिल्कुल इतनी ख़राब थी, और मैं तो पूरा 1
month मैं अपने खाना नहीं बनाया, like कुछ नहीं बनाया. All the time I woke up and I just go straight to college और Tim's पे ही अपना coffee, bagel, breakfast करना और बाहरों ही खाना. One thing in Gurdwara, like people don't talk to you. Like I don't want to say anything bad, but they look at you in a different way. I don't know why. Like when we were finding a place, so another reason we go to Gurdwara because ads lagiyan maybe for a job, for a place available, right? And when you see that they literally mention student not allowed, it feels like it's so bad. Like are we? It's like they are comparing us with animals. So you see ad and they specifically mentioned only Punjabi girls or only Gujarati girls or students not allowed, only vegetarians. So these kind of like racism or sexism exist like here in like बहुत ज़्यादा. Then I came to Brampton. Here is the worst moment. Yeah, I rented a basement with my friend. The landlady was a Punjabi Indian lady, and I cannot say, like, I don't want to remember that moment. She was the worst lady I ever met. Yeah, she was just changing colors, like sometimes she was rude, sometimes she was showing us that we have a house, you are just student here. Like she was kind of a like the racist between students or Canadian citizens. Then one day the argument went up. Then one day, like I don't belong to a high class family back home, India. I don't know how can she know that I belong to that class. And she abused me on that. I'm not sure about the lady, but I'm sure about the man. He was definitely drunk because we used to drink daily. There's an old lady there, her mother. She was a very old lady, about 85. I used to sit with her and talk to her, and they took an advantage to this. The man said that you are hugging me because you are a student, you want citizenship through me. Like he is a 65 years old man. That was the level of his dirty mind. I can say I was a brave girl that time. I managed to find a new place. I managed to spend my 1 or 2 days there. Luckily, it was end of the month, so I just moved to a new place.
There's also like a very clear notion of power that's been in place that we've seen with whether that's employers or landlords. They're Canadian citizens or permanent residents, and they generally have labor, like general labor jobs. And they're even willing to live in one room and, like give their general space out to students, but control the students by keeping their passports or imposing other restrictions on them. It's interesting because I think in most situations it's been women who have been kind of the ringleaders. I'm sure there's husbands or men involved, but in general, the women have been the ones that have kind of been the ones to confiscate the passports and welcome them in and then not let them out, which has been very interesting. And I would say on average, 1 call a week comes in, or 1 email a week comes in from someone who's pregnant. Most of them are not married and are not aware of what it costs to be pregnant in Canada if you don't have healthcare, and then are struggling. And a lot of them are keeping their pregnancies, so they're not terminating their pregnancies. And I don't even know if they know what that is. I don't even know if they know what protection is. I don't think they understand any of these things. And these are very, it's unfortunate to see because these are girls that are essentially teenagers or like just, entering their 20s. And most cases, there's no father in the picture. We had one example of a young woman last year when COVID first started who wasn't able to pay her rent, and her landlord had asked for sex in exchange of the rent. It's unfortunate. She didn't want to do anything about it. She didn't want to complain, but we were able to give her. And I think for them, it's just, we need to stay where we are.
मेरी फ्रेंड्स हैगियां जो मेरे तो पहला आ गए सीगे वो मेरी फ्रेंड्स ਉਹ ਹੁਣ ਇੱਥੇ RPN ਲੱਗੀ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਜੌਬ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਉਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਜਲਦੀ ਦੀ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮ ਦੇਵਾਂ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ RPN ਬਣਾ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੇਰੀ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਨੂੰ ਕਿੰਨੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਹੋਏਗੀ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੀ ਬੇਟੀ ਵੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੁਣ ਰਜਿਸਟਰਡ ਨਰਸ ਹੈ And moreover, I want to work in hospital. Like it has a good status also.
For the time being, I'm thinking to remain in Canada to get my permanent residency. I'm trying to get a job in my field, and after getting my permanent residency, I want to study more. I want to complete a master's in SSW. I really want to establish my own business because, yeah, that's not enough, which I am earning right now. That's not enough for us, I guess. Yeah, so I am really looking forward to own a business, small business. And then, yes, we need to buy a house next year. We are saving for that. And it's like you are building everything by yourself. It's not easy here, right? So, so we are trying to do that by our own. But yes, if we need to take help from our parents, we will definitely take their help. And then, yes, we are into the middle of pregnancy, and then we have kids, and then we have a future with that as well, I think. Now we have a whole future of our kids in front of us. We need to figure out the good schools, good universities near around, but yes, we need to plan accordingly, right? And then the community, he or she is gonna grow up in that community, and we need to figure out that as well. So I don't want to stick to only one community. I really want to go to the community where I can find different people.
Actually, मैं थोड़ा ड्राइविंग की तरफ जाना चाहता हूँ. अभी टीम ऑर्डर पे काम कर रहा हूँ तो थोड़ा पे का ज़्यादा नहीं होता, मिनिमम के पास ही लगते हैं. आगे अगर थोड़ा अपने फ्यूचर फैमिली का देखना है तो आपको थोड़ा पे वाली जॉब में थोड़ा Actually, my brother is truck driver right now. He works 5 days a week and he earns around 6,000 per month, which is way more than my salary right now. हम थोड़ी मुश्किल होगी क्योंकि कोविड करके अमेरिका का वीज़ा नहीं है, काफ़ी ड्राइवर्स को जितना अवेलेबल नहीं ते उन्होंने कोई ऑप्शन थोड़ी लिमिटेड हो जाते ते उस करके थोड़ी प्रॉब्लम आ रही है.
Yeah, to be realistic, I might settle here, but if I want to do what I want to do, so I'll go to Vancouver, settle there. Opportunities are great here for masters and stuff here. But yeah, that's a beautiful place. Vancouver is a beautiful place. I want to live there. I would prefer to be surrounded by nature than people. Kind of long.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Tania, for that great film. I'm wondering now if we could open it up to questions. Oh, right, we were going to take a break. That's right. Okay, thank you for reminding me. Yes, so let's take a 10-minute break and resume at 1:15. Okay, thanks, everyone.
Okay, perfect. I think we're okay to get started again. Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Well, welcome back, everyone. So thank you so much, Tania, for that really intriguing and interesting video. Unfortunately, exposing some very challenging issues. I would like to open it up now to questions or comments. There was some comments in the chat. So please just raise your hand, or if I can't see inside of the room, Hannah, let me know.
Maybe we have the speaker in the room.
Oh, okay. Why don't we start with the speaker in the room first?
There's a microphone right there. Oh, okay.
Hi, afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Tanya, for inviting me and for just, the film. It was really eye-opening, very educating for me to learn more about Punjabi international students' experiences. One thing that struck me in the comments that was being made, the woman who is like works with the NGO, I forget the name of the NGO.
Dahdaleh.
Oh, okay, yes. And she mentioned that, some of the students that the, either the employer, in that instance, the employer, they would confiscate their passports. That is essentially human trafficking. So in instances like that, where somebody's passport has been withheld from them and they don't have the ability to freely move, are these situations reported? Because, that would be like a form of human trafficking. So what do they do in those sorts of instances?
That's a really important observation. My sense is that most of the time these are not reported because of the dependence that's created, between the students and their property owners or landlords. But there are also landladies, so it's hard to kind of explain the whole situation, as well as employers. So because of that power relationship and because of the way in which these international students are brought in as temporary students, as migrant workers also, because they're also working. So there's that dependence created around their residence in Canada. Their temporariness makes them vulnerable to deportations. So I think that, and also the desperation to find housing. So if there is a house where, they have space, then they would sort of go along with whatever is being asked for. So unfortunately, I think that would be an interesting thing to ask Ladlia. I think one of the things that Manveer, the woman who was talking in the film, she was saying that there are situations where they would like to complain, where they would like to report things, but then the consequences can be quite severe for the international students. For instance, they might lose their home because, there would be evictions. Or if the landlord, or if the property holders are taken to task for whatever they're doing, then it might mean that they would also be evicted from that particular house. So it's kind of like a catch-22 situation, which is also the case in most trafficking situations, right? So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. All right, we have some questions. Sanjay, I believe you had your hand up first. Please go ahead. Yeah, you're muted. You have to unmute.
I'm muted, yes. Look, thank you so much for your work, Tanya, on this. I'll just do a brief introduction. I'm a foresight expert. I'm an adjunct lecturer in McMaster University's program, Master Public Policy and Digital Society program. And I run a consultancy on converging crises, really looking at the confluence of global instability and climate change and other sorts of issues. To what extent do you and your collaborators and the students themselves feel exploited at multiple levels in their lived experience of being recruited, then looking for an appropriate living situation, and then dealing with people they thought would be friendly, like employers potentially, who then turn out to be exploitative? And this human trafficking piece that was mentioned by the previous questioner, I think, is these are textbook cases of human trafficking in some cases. How do they feel about the entire chain of events and their vulnerabilities at each point in their experience?
That's a really interesting question because you're talking about, if I'm understanding the question correctly, you're asking if the students articulated the fact that they were being exploited at different levels by their employer, by their, maybe even their educational institution, because as we know that many of the private career colleges have been very extractive. You know, they will take their fees and then not deliver, like not have housing, of course, but also say something like, I'm sure many of you have heard of the college. I think it's called Northern College, where they admitted a whole bunch of international students, but when they arrived here, they were told that we have taken on too many people, and so unfortunately we can't we can't honor the admission that we had given you before. So then they had to kind of scramble around, and this happened maybe a few weeks back, so scramble around and get themselves admitted into another institution. So there's exploitation going on at different levels. But very interestingly, when we did our interviews, people didn't articulate the fact that they were being, that they had all these sorts of very exploitative situations. And that's an interesting thing for us as researchers, because often the people themselves, when you interview them, they will not talk about those kinds of critical things. Perhaps it's, you know, they're also trying to sort of present a front of success, that they have somehow able to cope with it. You know, it's part of their agency too, that they are able to survive all these very difficult situations and challenges with the help of other students, with the help of sometimes of their professors, help of, you know, other people that they come across. So they do survive, and they have those amazing support systems that they have, you know, created with their friends and people that they meet along the way. And so they don't really, they might be thinking about some of those critical things that you are raising, but they don't necessarily articulate them when you engage them in conversation. And that's interesting. And in fact, one of the things that we learned and that I had to struggle with, and we struggled with it, those of us, Rick and I, who put the video together, is the fact that their critiques were aimed at their own communities most of the time. They were not really critiquing the system that is set up here in Canada, which is, you know, the two-step kind of international student first, and then the postgraduate work permit holder second, and then PR, because that is the system which actually creates and gives rise to all these sort of trafficking conditions and very difficult exploitative relationships that you are referring to. It's a very long answer. I'm sorry.
No, but it's a wonderful answer though, and I just have a super quick follow-up, so I can see a lineup of wonderful other questions that you're going to receive. But from the digital society standpoint, did anyone mention anything about any sense of dis or misinformation online that led to or makes it hard or challenging to find the right resources or adapt or anything like that?
They did talk a lot about connecting with digital communities and groups from whom they would get suggestions, you know, solve problems. So I think that these social media connections that they made, YouTube videos that they would have seen, YouTube channels, actually are very useful to them, because that's what gives them information about potential problems and also potential solutions. So in terms of social media and the whole digital world, they indirectly indicated that those were actually helpful spaces.
Wonderful. For them. Thank you. I look forward to staying in touch afterwards. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. Nimrit, you were next for your question. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hello. Thank you so much for the amazing and deeply important film. I just had a question about kind of this disconnect that's clearly taking place between the early arrival and then when the students actually are physically here. So this idea, I really appreciated that you included the section about arrival in Canada and these thoughts that students were having before getting here. So the idea that Canada is like the safest place in the world, it's clean, nobody bothers you, it's a better lifestyle, you're independent. And then all of a sudden, every single one of those beliefs was countered when the section about community and landlords and jobs came into play. And I was wondering, one, why is there such a strong disconnect? Why is the truth not being told about the reality of the situation? And why are students not given the tools to advocate for themselves? Like, for example, I found it very interesting about the note about the bed bugs, and saying, well, I'm going to go to the tenant board, when the student found out that there is a tenant board, and immediately the landlord was like, okay, yeah, have your money and go. So why is there this disconnect? Why is the information not being shared? And why are these students not given the resources to advocate for themselves? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. It's really really an important question, and one that has intrigued me and others that I work with. I think that when we talk to individual students, we see that they do exercise their agency, and they resist exploitative situations in their own way, but they do it as individuals. They don't do it in a collective. I shouldn't say they don't. The ones that we spoke with don't, because as we know, there are activist organizations now which have been actually very much highly profiled in the context of several struggles that are going on involving international students around the fraudulent agents and lack of housing, and also the wage theft that is going on. There are groups like Naujawan Support Network, there's the Migrant Students Union through the MWAC, and there's Ladlian, which we profiled in the video. So there are kind of activist collective organizations of international students who are speaking out, who are articulating quite critical sorts of analysis around the experiences of international students. But for those students that we interviewed, which was actually a very small bunch, so that is one of the limitations of our research. They preferred, for a number of reasons which we can talk about, not to express their similar critique of the migration system that has been set up here, by the federal government, and also the other systems at the provincial level, like the colleges and universities and housing and so on. So, and in terms of my ongoing research in this area, this is exactly the area that we are going to be looking at next, is their collective organizing as international students. I hope that touches on some of.
Yeah, thank you.
May I add one point?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Rick. I helped put the film together along with Professor Tania. One thing that I did find common between all the questions, and something that comes to my mind, is the cultural makeup from where we come. So we have this, indoctrination done right from childhood, where we have said that, your bigger goal is to do something, and on the way you'll always have hurdles. So you tolerate them, you compromise, and then you try to reach that goal, right? So whatever problems we are facing, whether it's taking away of our passport, we try to, okay, this is just a hiccup to, come to the goal of settling into Canada. So that's our approach for everything. Even if you see marital issues, it's the woman adjust. You always adjust. That's the thing, so that you can experience happiness. And that compromise is what forces us not to organize in a holistic way and take step towards correction. Is that, it's my problem, I'll just adjust, it's temporary, and then we'll move on to something better. That hope of going for something better, that's what the final goal is, and that's why we find that the students remain limited in their opinion to themselves and solving the problems at their own levels rather than getting together. That was just one of the points. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, thank you. Pramila, you had your hand up next. Please go ahead.
Hi. This echoes my own experience of coming here as a foreign student some 40 years ago. And we used to call ourselves aliens, foreign students, visa students. We had several nomenclature for, and when I'm hearing the students today, in some ways, it looks like there's a time warp. Nothing seems to have changed very much. So I'm very disappointed and disheartened that maybe I have failed as a predecessor to, and I thought we did we tried to change the conditions for migrants, for immigrants, for students. So I just wanted to put that out. And I think critiquing the system takes a very long time to actually name it, because it comes in very small fragments. And to see the whole picture is only possible much later in life when you have lived here and you can join the points, join the connections. It's just barely enough to put one foot in front of the other and get through whatever is troubling. And mostly it is, a whole lot of it is to do with lack of money and fear of deportation or being somehow failing the Canadian system. So, you try to be a different person. Oh, they don't like it here. We better be good here. We better be, this is the model minority, the model student. So very fiery students from India and Punjab become like little mouse here, Mickey Mouse. So because we think we just have to, put our heads down and keep on struggling. And it is as Tania had pointed out, it is at an individual level. And being politically involved in a larger way, at least took me a good, by fits and starts, about 5-6 years till I got involved in student politics. So I just want to say a couple of things about what the school's responsibility is to make sure that the students have a very good couple of fact sheets. What is available to them? What are the organizations, which are NGOs like Baldev Mutta's organization, Ladia, if there are groups who are helping, their information should be very clearly be on a fact sheet, which should be available as students enter this country, not only a citizenship handbook or something, but and some way in which people are received. I mean, once I landed here, there wasn't a thing. I just went somewhere into the cyberspace or some kind of. So I think there is no reception of students, no information possibility, no portals. So it's all, when everything is in on social media and cyberspace, there's no personal connection. And I think that is really, really important for institutions to have it very methodically done. So I'll stop here because I know there is a lot of people who would like to say their piece. Thank you.
Yeah, could I just make a quick comment on that? I think that you've described this whole neoliberal design of the international student pathway into Canada, you know, and international students are often seen as ideal migrants and then immigrants because they're not eligible for any services within Canada. They're not covered by OHIP or any provincial health programs. They are not eligible for any social services. They're not eligible for any settlement services. That's what Mr. Baldev Mutta was talking about, that we have asked IRCC if we can serve international students, and they don't respond clearly to that. So I think that it's the whole neoliberal kind of part of the neoliberal policy of both federal and provincial governments. It's kind of a sink or swim kind of, okay, we brought them in, and then it's up to them, you know, how they survive, and some don't survive. Some fall through the cracks, and, you know, they have horrible endings, some of which we have seen in the popular media. We'll just stop there.
Okay,
Thank you for that comment.
Thank you, Pramila and Tanya. Manisha, please go ahead.
Hi, Tanya. Congratulations on the great film. So during the interviews, sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I'm just saying that I'm sharing the congratulations with Rick.
Yes, congratulations to all of you for the great film. So I had a question. So during the interviews, there was discussions about this polarization of communities, and we heard examples of this in the film from like interviewees that were discussing difficulties with housing due to their status as students, or some of the comments that they experienced because of their student status, right? Do you find that this polarization has exacerbated given the context of the pandemic? And if so, is this something that we'll continue to see as the number of international students continue in the post-pandemic context?
Yeah, it's a really great question, and it was actually one of the surprise findings from this project. I didn't expect to find the kind of polarization that I heard about from the international students that we interviewed, where they, almost all of them, kind of talked about the hostility and, you know, the otherizing that they experienced from the citizen Punjabi community. And then since we did this, you know, one-year project, I've also been sort of looking at other scholarship from other researchers who have been doing research with, particularly with Punjabi students like Lilak Marom in Vancouver, for instance, and also other students here at York that have been graduate students who did their theses on international students. And so this kind of polarization, hostility, I would even say a kind of racism, which can be called neo-racism, which is the racism against the other, you know, the outsiders, those who don't have, who are not part of the nation, who are not part of the Canadian nation. And so, you know, this sort of articulation is a real thing. And unfortunately, it's very difficult to bring out and address. And in fact, that was one of the ethical issues that Rick and I had to deal with, that we didn't want this video to further stigmatize, you know, the Punjabi community, particularly in Brampton, which is already very stigmatized. however, these things happen within our communities, and it's like, the old question of, do we speak about the violence that's happening within our own community in a society which is so entrenched in racism against our communities? How do we talk about some of these problems that exist in our community, like violence against women, like internal racism, like what we found here? So I think it's a real issue, and it's one of the difficult conversations that I'm not sure we have even engaged in that conversation.
Okay, thank you both for that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tania, for and I guess Rick for making this film. I think I also see it as something useful in the classroom. And so right now, for example, I'm teaching a course on racism and law. I'm just trying to imagine and how to use it. And I think you were also mentioning that it was also made in the context of using it as a teaching tool. So one, I want some of your thoughts on were you envisioning to use this in the classroom? And maybe you could also speak, I know you touched also on the question, the legal dimensions of this, but I was curious on maybe if you could elaborate on how, I guess, the different ways in which, I guess that you did make that really important point that this is part of the neoliberal migration system of this two-stage process, and I guess there's a strong legal dimension to this, or the regulation or lack thereof of agencies, or the rights of international students, or, so if you could speak to some of those.
Thank you for that question. It's interesting because when we first started thinking of creating some kind of resource, I think we talked about making a very short thing, like 5 minutes or 10-minute piece, because we know that in the classroom it's difficult to show this is almost an hour, I think a little less than an hour, and people we can't hold people's attention that long. But that was one of the reasons why we had it organized under themes, so that you can show short segments from it. So if you're talking about housing issues, you can talk about the housing part, employment law and racism or human rights. You can focus on the labor part. But of course, to get we struggled with this because it was very difficult to keep it to 5 minutes. And maybe Rick, you can talk about that. Rick is the one who said, well, the story is too complex and too big to encapsulate in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So that's why. But in terms of how to use it in the classroom, I would say show bits of it and then have a discussion. In fact, I had the experience of doing that. I was invited by Professor Yvonne Su, who couldn't make it today, unfortunately. In her class, she invited me to come in and talk about the housing issues and human rights issues for her class. And so I played just a section on housing. And I think I may have played the part on relationship with the community, or maybe it was the housing part. Each part is roughly about 10 minutes. 10 minutes, yeah.
10 minutes.
So, and then we had a discussion. So that seemed to work well. That's something.
Okay, thank you. And is it available somewhere online?
It is. There is a YouTube link that I can send you if you email me or the center. I think you can get the email. The YouTube link. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank
you.
you.
Want to add anything?
It was just for me also, I am a filmmaker. I'm into audiovisual studies, but I'm not really a sociology major. So for me, it was eye-opening, and also because I came here as an immigrant student. So a lot of things I associated with myself. So there were two aspects to it which I was looking at as a documentary filmmaker. One was, kind of connecting with the students who were being interviewed, and because they were all talking about their own experiences, and that was individual viewpoints. But then also you have those viewpoints of their dreams, and then their reality sets in, versus then also to kind of make sense of how it is working on a society level. So that's why we got the inputs from the NGOs coming in and who are talking about it as a society and linking it through. So then you kind of have those individual sections that start making sense, and you can. So this is all a conversation starter. As I was looking at it, it's just touching on the topics, and each one can be delved into in depth. It's like an ocean of research waiting to happen, and probably that's where education comes in further. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Eve, would you like to go ahead with your question or comment?
Yes, thank you. I'm traveling and I'm on my phone, so I won't turn my camera on. But thank you, first of all, very much, Tania, and to your collaborators. Can you hear me? By the way, you can hear me, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Eve.
Hi, Tania. This was excellent, and I think really important and timely, given the conversations that are happening around the international students, the demonization of international students vis-a-vis housing, immigration numbers, so on and so forth. And I'm wondering, Tania, within that context, but also institutionally, the context where, York itself is kind of a rapacious recruiter of international students, of course, for our degree programs, but also for things like ULE, where students are charged incredibly high rates of tuition. And then, of course, silence around the exploitation of international students and their fates. I'm thinking specifically of the deaths of 2 international students who were York programs, and the utter silence around that from administration. So given that context, the institutional context as well, I'm wondering if you have ideas for recommendations around things that a place like York, or let's say York specifically, should be doing for international students. I mean, I've heard things like, oh, we need to have, information, which is very true, but what should the institutions be doing? And what should York be doing?
Thanks for bringing it home, bringing the topic home. When we did our outreach and we did the research, we mainly reached Punjabi students who were attending colleges. Interestingly, even though that wasn't part of our framework, but that's what happened, because I believe most Punjabi students attend colleges as opposed to universities. So what York can do, I think a number of things. I think one of the first things that could be done is to get international students together at York and have a round table, like a town hall or something, where they are able to articulate what kinds of issues they're facing, what problems they're facing, and the obstacles, and this kind of thing, and then what they need to be included more in the life of the university. I think that can be done very easily. It doesn't cost anything. Have a consultation, because I think one of the things that I notice is that all the debates and discussions that are happening now, in the media, like around housing and agents and things like that, very few international students themselves are consulted around what they think, about the cap on students, for instance, or, what's going on with the housing and what do they need in terms of housing. I think housing is a big issue. I think York should really channel some of their resources to building affordable housing for international students and for all students. The housing that we have on campus is very expensive housing. They are like condos because there's a private-public collaboration, so it's profit-making. So most students cannot afford that, and of course international students are not able to afford it. So I think that if York should really look at other models. I believe recently I saw a report that around nonprofit housing in Quebec, I believe, and there may be other models that are there. So housing is one thing. I think we need to have more resources like the office that exists here. I mean, I haven't really done research on what exists at York, but generally speaking, the offices that the universities and even the colleges, what they provide is very minimal. For instance, they may not have services available in different languages, which is very important. Both colleges and universities need to have that, and particularly now, a big chunk is coming from India, from the Punjab, and so I think that staffing needs to be provided for that kind of thing. And if I had my way, I would also look at not charging international students such high fees. I don't know what it takes to discuss that, but I feel like why should they be charged 3 to 4 to 5 times the tuition? But of course, that's connected with the budget line that the colleges and universities have. But I think that we can start a conversation around it. Like, why is it that international, it's such a differential kind of treatment that, I don't think I have to convince anyone the differences are so stark. So these are just some ideas, but I'm sure there are many more that we can talk about.
Thank you, Tanya. And I hope, as JJ and Rhonda embark on their international trip, I think today, I hope that you will have a chance to share your findings with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, all they need to do is call me or send me an email.
Well, thank you so much, Tanya, and all of our participants. Those were great questions and great food for thought in terms of replies and how we could move forward. So I'd like to thank everyone for participating, and especially Tanya and Rick for the great film and probing discussion on the challenges and how we could address them in the future. So thank you so much, everyone. And enjoy the rest of your day. And of course, please do tune in for our seminar next week.
Thank you so much, Mary. And thank you all for coming again and for all your questions and comments. Thank you.
Okay, not the best with you.